Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 307 of the J Situation Podcast. I'm recording this on May 27th, 2026. How are all you wonderful folks doing? Yeah, I hope you're doing well. We are publishing this a day later this week. There was a Memorial Day holiday on Monday. We chose to observe that, and so here we are. Wonderful testing has been ongoing, really neat publications, and I really think this year is shaping up to be super cool from a learning perspective. And on today's episode, we're going to hit last week's deep dive on the Dead Air Lazarus 6 report, 2 mounts, both on the Mark 18. Really interesting silencer, really consistent performance. It's really a joy to do that one. Very popular model. That's going to be cool. And then after that, we have yet another report to show you today. This is from Rampart Range Suppression. They are back. You may remember their Carson 30 silencer that was presented on the 762 SR25 earlier this year. I think it was about 10 publications ago. That titanium infinity core derivative did really well on the SR25, and so today you're going to see the Carson 556 model. Again, it's an infinity core derivative, but this model is a dedicated 556 silencer, and boy, it is really performing well. You know, some little tweaks to the infinity core can really do some interesting stuff, and so we're going to give an intro to that report that's being published today, or well, it'll be live tomorrow morning, which is today for you, tomorrow for me. Okay, so all right, let's get on with the show. If you've been here before, welcome back. So glad to have you back. If you're new to the podcast, man, awesome you're here. Welcome. Glad to have you. Use the timestamps in the episode description wherever you are listening to the podcast, whether it is on our website at pewscience.com/podcast or on YouTube or Spotify or anywhere you get your podcasts. You can skip to wherever you would like there. There will be a lot of timestamps today. If you want to hang around with me a little longer, I'm going to tell you about the fine folks that make this podcast possible every week, including Legion Athletics, because nothing you do is worth doing without consistency. You have to do things all the time if you want to excel at them and be the best. And Legion Athletics can help you do your best. You know, whey protein, pre-workout, post-workout, creatine, vitamins, minerals. Do they have everything you need? No one does. But they have a lot of it. Visit legionathletics.com, code PewScience. Save a ton of money. Keep using that code. Save more money. It's a win-win for everyone. Sponsor Shop also helps us out with this podcast. They've done a lot for the industry. Their kiosk is I think their claim to fame there in their dealer network. No paperwork errors, just you and your sponsor with no drama. Truly is sponsor ownership simplified. This episode is also brought to you by the fine folks at Top Gun Ranging Houston. Yeah, man. H-Town. 713. 281. How many area? 832. They're worth checking out. If you're just passing through Houston, you should really go. The experience 15 lanes. That's a lot of lanes. Tell you what. Also, the largest rental fleet in the entire state of Texas. If you want to try out the wares, you know what I'm saying? It's cool. You can check them out. Top Gun Range, Instagram, website, everything. They're great. Also, Capitol Armory, deep in the heart of Texas, the true NFA enthusiasts for a very long time. And did you know they can ship the stuff directly to you, which is nuts? Well, that is if you live in one of the 42 states where silencers are legal. But also, if you ever call them to ask about how these things work, their experience, they can give you some really good first-hand information. And I think as long as you speak with some of their experienced folks, they're going to shoot you straight, which is all you can hope for nowadays. Finally, this podcast is brought to you by the Pew Science Laboratory. I'm the technical director of the lab, and in the interest of public education, we have continued to do this podcast now. We're in the 6th year of the Pew Science effort. I think started this podcast before that, but we've continued to keep it going for 6 years, and we try to present to you the most accurate silencer data analysis in the world, we think. And it's all available at pewscience.com 24/7 for you. The Silencer Sound Standard was made for you. if you're listening to it, that means it was made for you because it's made for the public. And in those 8 sections, there's a compendium of silencer analysis that we hope helps you throughout your suppressed small arm life. If you would be so kind, you can help us with this effort by joining with a membership on our website at pewscience.com. It's very cheap, really cheaper than a cup of coffee per month. And but if you're not into that, and I understand not everyone is, you can throw us a donation every once in a while if you want. And if you're not into that, that's okay too. Just spread the word. Let folks know that silencers and guns are awesome. And that's doing us a solid. And if you don't want to do that, that's okay too. If you just download these podcasts and listen to it on the top of the mountain off the grid, you know what? That's awesome. Respect. I heard that high voltage lines can fry your brain. So, 5G, all that's good stuff. You got to get away from the electromagnetic fields. We had 2 topics for you today. The first topic is going to be that deep dive on report 6225 on the Lazarus 6. We'll go through the hazard map too and all that good stuff. And then topic 2 will be the report 226, which will be the Rampart Range Carson 556. And so if I can arrange my desk properly now, which I have not done prior to the podcast because I was out all day at another lab. Okay. We'll move into topic 1 at a time of 6 minutes and 32 seconds. Yeah, I was at another lab today with the U.S. government doing things that we need to do. 1 second, please. 1 moment. Okay. So, topic 1, Sound Signature Review 6225. The Dead Air Lazarus 6 on a 10.3-inch Mark 18. We published this last week. Triskelion technology in a rifle silencer? The humanity. Yeah, and this was actually similar, and I told you this last time, but this is actually similar to the technology that you saw in the Mojave 9 evaluation that we did at this point, what is it, a couple years ago or a year ago, whenever it was, I don't remember when we published the Mojave 9. But this is like that with a twist, completely different combustion regime, frankly. And so, a lot of people asked us for a long time how the Lazarus 6 stacks up in what is now one of the most ultra-competitive and saturated rifle silencer markets now in 2026. And the Lazarus 6 is a high flow rate silencer. It's very consistent in its performance. And so this will be the full technical talk of the 2 tests that were done in our internal research program for the Lazarus 6 that we are presenting to you. Okay. It is a Xeno test and direct thread test, and we'll go into that and what that means and what it doesn't mean and the implications for you and yours. So I've broken this talk down typical as our technical discussions are structured now in subtopics Alpha through Foxtrot. We're going to go through an intro and recap. Lazarus 6 overview. I'm going to give you a broad overview of the silencer. Then I'm going to give you a more technical overview of the design in topic Charlie. Then I'm going to go through hazard map brief 8.1.22, where we look at the hazards to humans spatially with a PewSoft HD hazard map. And then Echo will be system performance in detail, in which we'll deep dive into the full report and look at some blast physics. And then in topic F or Foxtrot, I'll give you overall thoughts and some comparisons to other things in the market. Sound good? Okay, we'll do that. And so I'll start the intro now at 9 minutes and 5 seconds. That sounds right. That seems 2.5 minutes saying that. That's so crazy, dude. So very happy we could get this to you. It was a long time coming. And if you want some more background about the choices we made in this test program and a little bit like just more of those generalities and stuff about the stuff, check out the intro discussion to the report on last week's episode, which was episode 306. In today's talk, we're strictly going to dive in technically to how the Lazarus functions, what makes it tick, what you can expect as a user of the silencer, how the technology fits into the research pedigree, and again, the very saturated 5.56 rifle silencer industry or market. I think never before in silencer history has there been so many 5.56 rifle silencers advertised for use. I think we all agree on that. And And of course, never before in silencer history have so many people claimed to have the quietest 5.56 silencer. I think that's also an unprecedented time. It's actually grotesque, if we're being frank, in the claims that are out there now. And you know, to be clear, and just so we're all friends here, I'm not lumping Dead Air into all that. All right, as we discussed last time, you know, really, what really needs to be said, I think, to everybody is that with some of these new Dead Air silencers like the Mojave and the Lazarus, I think Dead Air's performance claims have now actually been extremely reasonable, you know, lately, and they're tending to match our data and engineering analysis really well. Like their qualitative claims are matching our quantitative analysis. So it's interesting, you know, maybe on a long enough timeline, you know, these larger companies are coming around. I don't know. On a long enough timeline. I'm not saying they all are, but maybe there's some improvement going on, and that's good to see. You know, it's actually a lot of the newer companies out here that they weren't around for all the tomfoolery of marketing lies, you know, years ago. And I think they're just simply repeating the past mistakes, not knowing that for all the silencer veterans, it's just old hat. We've seen it before, so we just laugh and roll our eyes because we've heard it all before. There's nothing that a new silencer company has said that we haven't heard before, right? For those of us who have been around the silencer industry for decades, it's all, whatever claim anyone says, we've heard it. And so, you know, time is a flat circle. No. So anyway, that's like the only negative thing I want to say. I would say this entire talk should be extremely positive because today we are going to discuss what we feel is an important contribution to the state of practice. And that is the Triskelion technology in the Lazarus. And that again is somewhat similar in the Mojave. And with that, we will get into it. And subtopic Bravo at a time of 12 minutes and 16 seconds. Okay, so overview of the silencer, and I have it. Where is it? Here it is. Yeah, a little guy. Don't worry about that little guy. See, if Dead Air wanted to, they could have called this Lazarus, called it the Lazarus K. You know, I don't think anyone would have batted an eye. Maybe they didn't because they have a Sandman K. I don't know why they did what they did. I don't know. I'm just saying, if they wanted to, they could have. No one would have cared because 5.2 inches without a mount system installed. So yeah, I'd give them that. People have called K silencers that are way bigger than this. You know, again, we've been over this ad nauseum, but I just think it's funny. So this is hub compatible. It's offered in 2 off-the-shelf versions. Well, maybe more than 2, but 2 main off-the-shelf versions, Chemo and Xeno. We tested the Xeno version, and then we removed the Xeno mount coupler and installed a generic direct thread mount and tested it that way. With the 3-pronged Xeno flash hider and mount coupler, the silencer is 6 1/8, 6.125 inches long, which I think now we would agree is no longer a K silencer in most reasonable people's minds, which I think, again, we would all agree with. Once you're at 6 inches, well, yeah, now you're like full-size 5.56 silencer, so don't try to be K in marketing, maybe, because you'll mislead people. With the direct thread mount, well, you're back down to 5.4, you know, which might be on the cusp. So, you know, regardless, you just need to know that you have options as the user, and also know that performance can change when you implement those options, when you decide and choose an option. However, as you will come to learn after reviewing this report or listening to this talk today, the Lazarus actually doesn't care as much about the mount as some other silencers, and that's sometimes a pretty cool thing. That can be cool. So moving forward, so we were just talking about the mount. So moving forward from the mount interface, you have a 3D printed body. The material is Haynes 282, which is it's a nickel chromium cobalt alloy. In short, if you are an ultra abusive user and want to subject the silencer to insane firing schedules, there are some benefits of Haynes over Inconel. Chances are it won't matter to you, like 99.9% of you, it won't matter. But if you do want to know some technical details about that, I did discuss that in the JK Armament Procore 556 discussion, which was episode 302. Just so you know, they pulled that episode from YouTube, unfortunately, which is a shame, I think, because a lot of people, the feedback was that a lot of people found it useful. So if you would like to listen to that technical talk to learn more about Haynes as related to silencers and learn more about the material behavior, find episode 302 on our website and listen to it through the website player or on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your RSS, our RSS feed. It's syndicated everywhere because it's an RSS feed. It's like a real simple syndication. That's what RSS stands for. It's awesome. Literally everywhere except YouTube. Not bitter about it. The internals and tube of the silencer are printed as one. Where's my water? 1 second, dude. They're printed as one. All Haynes. It's cool. You move down to the center exterior of the silencer. You have some ribbing, some longitudinal ribbing, which I personally like. I find that it's practical for a gripping surface. There's all kinds of different ways to create a knurling-like function with a 3D print. Everyone has their opinion. Dead Air chose to print longitudinal ridges, and that's just fine. It works great. Moving further toward the distal end of the silencer, where the bullet comes out, you have a machined end cap that is removable. It's probably stainless steel, I think. It's just like a normal Dead Air flash hiding end cap. It's removable, much like the Dead Air Legacy rifle silencers, like the Sandman series you'd be familiar with. The end of the silencer does actually have some distal vents, and we will talk about those in the next subtopic. So that's kind of a broad strokes. The weight of the Lazarus is it's fairly reasonable. 14.2 ounces naked with the end cap. So not completely naked. The full Xeno configuration weighs 19.3 ounces. That's hub coupler plus 3-prong flash hider it comes with. So all in the silencer. So all in, if you bought the Xeno version, it would be 19.3 ounces total. Our direct thread configuration that we tested, and I'm saying our because direct thread mounts can vary, ours weighed 15.1 ounces. So the world is your oyster with regard to the weight you want for the Lazarus, ladies and gentlemen. You are the master of your domain. Something to know about the Xeno mount, which I don't know if I've talked to you about that lately. It's cool. I mean, if you're not familiar with it, it's a left-hand threaded system, sort of like the CAT system, and the AI system, stuff like that, kind of. It's left-hand with a taper, no mechanical lock other than that. In other words, no secondary retention mechanism. The hub coupler that came with the Xeno SKU of the silencer is longer than some other hub couplers. So just keep that in mind. It's actually, and this is just some trivia for you, the Xeno hub coupler is actually similar, if not identical in length, to a legacy CGS government program hub coupler for the left-hand threaded system that is now used by AI and CAT. That I want to say the WB was tested with, if I remember correctly. So it's you know what I mean? And it's interesting because I feel like the WB and the Lazarus are like the same size. And I feel like the Xeno Lazarus and the tested WB are like the same size in length. And it's just interesting. I just realized that after we had done this, I was like, oh yeah, man, they're like the same size. Like when I was looking at how everything compared and everything, and how they're stacking up in because we put the links in the report to compare some stuff. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. This is we're getting super deep right now. A lot of you don't care about that at all, but some of you enthusiasts, you can claim to know more than your buddy when you're at the bar drinking a beer and you're like, oh, guess what I know about trivial silencer knowledge that doesn't matter to anyone else in the world. The 3-pronged flash hider the Xeno that comes with this thing, it's actually really nice. I actually, you know what? And this is just something that's interesting about silencer mounts, and just again, just really niche knowledge. But I can tell who machined it. I feel like. I know that sounds weird, but I feel like I know which machine shop it came from. It's that high quality. because I can tell the difference. Because there's like certain machine shops that put out a lot of parts in this industry, and when sometimes when they feel like the one I touched on this, I know what shop it came from. That's how different the quality can be sometimes. Because remember, very few some silencer companies make their own mounts, but not all of them do. The hub coupler, however, that screws into the silencer that accepts the flash hider, not nearly as nice. I would bet you a beer that they used a different vendor for that. That came from two different. Now they fit together fine, but that's not why I'm saying. I'm saying because the threads that go into the silencer are out of spec. It works, but it's out of spec. You can tell. So that's a disaster, but that's not a new thing for Dead Air. We talked about this last time. That's not new, but you need to know that I don't want you to think like if you get your silencer and you like, oh, how come it doesn't screw in? Like, don't think that like you got a lemon or something. No, dude, it's like, that's like, we know that's going to happen with these. Like, don't feel bad. Like, don't freak out. It's probably fine. You're not going to screw and unscrew the hub mount anyway that much. So don't like worry. I wouldn't even worry about it. I'm just saying, like, don't think that like, oh man, I must have got a bad one. No, you just got what you're going to get. It's not even a silencer issue. It's just a third party mount issue that wasn't checked. And they just haven't been able to fix that for years. And, you know, we were surprised that we experienced it with this product in 2026, but not a big deal. I think the silencer itself exudes quality. I'm tremendously pleased with that. I think they subjectively, and I'm saying these things to you because they're not in the report, because we don't speak like this in the report. These are just subjective opinions I'm giving you, as just a person talk to you. And the flash hider itself and the silencer, chef's kiss with quality, and that's not something you would say for Dead Air over the years. So I think, again, massive improvement. Again, I think we said the same thing about the Mojave. I think that quality exuded quality. Didn't used to be typical. So anyway, just good. That's good stuff. When you pick this thing up, to me, it feels like a compact 5.56 can, and I just by feel. Again, I know that's weird to say, but this feels like it's not going to get in the way. I think that fits with the silencer's theme. More on that as we progress through the talk, but we're going to let's get more technical now. Oh, and also the one we tested is gray, but if you care. Let's get more technical now in subtopic Charlie, where we're going to discuss the more technical design at a time of 23 minutes and 5 seconds. Okay. Yeah, now we're going to go a little bit more interesting, at least to me. So now, okay, let's start again at the proximal end, the hub end. One moment. Okay, I want to go back and talk to you differently. Okay, we're going to we build complexity for you. The core is 3D printed, and the blast jet enters a spline chamber. Okay, and what that means is that you have a radial spline ribbing terminating into the first reflector. Whether that spline ribbing is for structural stiffness or reflection management is largely irrelevant, but it is neat. The spline termination to the first reflector forms the beginning of a star-shaped baffle, and the leading edge of the center of the reflector, or blast baffle, has a very large step. Okay, I'm being very careful with my words because I want you to really understand what I'm saying. So the two things I just said have echoes of what? Knight's armament crimp cone geometry, right? And you don't have to see a picture. I'm giving you a conceptual geometric design theme that has echoes of Knights. And that's wild. Is it the same? Absolutely not. And if you put them together, everyone would deny it. Does it have some design cues by proxy? Let's call it. Yes. Don't pretend it doesn't. And I think I talked about this when we talked about the Mojave. because you can't get away from it. Things have fingerprints in design and signature. This is the reality of silencers. When the incoming wave clears off of the main reflector body, you start to expand into an annular routing. This is where the magic happens with this silencer. When you clear past that first reflector and you get into that second expansion chamber, if you're a Mojave fan, you're gonna feel right at home with the Triskelion geometry. And this is the geometry that was adopted from Mike Smith's time at AAC, working under Brittingham, where he cast aluminum twisted star baffles for high surface area. And I don't believe they ever made it into a commercial product now until Dead Air. Same idea. It's just now it's 3D printed and it's different material, just like the Mojave. Titanium in the case of the Mojave, Haynes in the case of the Lazarus. You have high surface area, multiple spline and annular passages. A lot of great work gets done in this chamber, the second expansion chamber. And so what's next after that? Well, you do it again. And what's next? Well, the last expansion chamber to the end cap, annular vent around the distal end, circumferentially around the distal end. So you can count it. You got first reflector, 2, 3. You got 3 baffles in total in a pure sense. Though the complexity of the geometry allows for, a lot of work to be done in the expansion zones. It's not traditional baffle. Now, something to talk about really quick that was not included in the report, but may have been included indirectly, is the robust nature of this system. And this is the robustness from physically, not that it doesn't have a robust performance, but robust physical robustness. Is the geometry complicated? Sure. Is it overly complicated? Not by a long shot. And are there benefits to this? And I think there are. Particularly with regard to clogging, I just don't see this thing filling up like a lot of other silencers. Now, I have not tested that aspect, and I don't know that anyone has except Dead Air and maybe some users. I think this is I would venture to guess this is a relatively robust system from a serviceability standpoint. That brings me to the other avenue of robustness that I would mention in more detail than I did in the report, is a benefit of this design, I think, is hard use and durability. And folks like to scream Haynes, Inconel, Stellite, and they like to say all these words and material names because it's easy for a salesman to use a talking point to illustrate a trait. It's easy. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying it's easy. And people make silencers from these materials, and the danger is that folks just assume that it's the material that's going to hold up to hard use and you're good. And I can tell you right now, material is only half the battle, and we talked about this for many years. You can, and people have, make a silencer out of titanium that will hold up very well to multiple surge cycles. So what can be just important as material is geometry. And with regard to silencer durability, and when you examine the internal geometry of the Lazarus and you see the large step on the first reflector, you have to note there are not any sharp leading edges to cut down and erode. You have gross, coarse, flat features. And I'm not saying silencers with sharp edges and leading edge erosion are bad. I'm not drawing that line. I'm just saying it can be a factor depending on the baffle mouth geometry and depth and how far you can push erosion walls and the muzzle device you choose and offset. And some erosion walls are more than adequate, and it doesn't matter. In the case of the Lazarus, this is a thick front wall of the first reflector. It appears to be a very resilient design. I think that should give some confidence to the user. And furthermore, and this is another thing, clearing off of the surface is fast. And so the annular cavities are allowing that work to happen. And I would venture to guess that the other two baffles are most likely poised to hold up pretty well too. And so this is like I'm going somewhere with this. So the This is a really strong departure from the legacy Sandman series that many of you are familiar with and that have actually been evaluated in the Silencer Sound Standard on our website. If you're not familiar, if you're new to Pew Science within the past year or two, you might not know that we've evaluated every single Sandman silencer, the legacy silencer. And those silencers had cast stellite baffles, just like a lot of the old rugged stuff, right? It's all related. It's all the same design origins. And those baffles across all those companies, and Silencer Co. too, of course, because it's all the same thing. At the end of the day, they're all the same thing. They would, at least they were. And then those baffles would erode and chip and cut. And I just don't see that happening with the Lazarus. I could be wrong, but it's just a different time now. Didn't take that long, I guess, to deviate. Now, if you do get damage to a Lazarus, it would probably be with the 3-prong this Xeno model ships with, I would think. Because if you're gonna cut a blast baffle with a jet, it's probably gonna be with a focus jet from a 3-prong, I would think. I wouldn't really sweat this one as much as I would sweat a Sandman S, though. Just being real with you. I've seen some gaped out Sandman S's with 3-prongs for sure, like a chemo flash hider gaping out of Sandman. Even though it's stellite. With regard to technical functionality of this design, and that's on short barrel. With regard to technical functionality of this design, which you have a very high early time flow rate. You actually have a decent late time flow rate. And you might ask yourself, well, Jay, why is the late time flow rate so elevated in the Mojave? You told me about the blast chamber vents, but what's happening in late time? I say, well, yes, so you already know about the early time. You understand clearing off of that first reflector expediently, but why would the late time momentum dump happen at an elevated rate? Well, it's because they allow it to, first of all. There's annular circumferential distal vent array at the end. And that I know that's a lot of words. That's a fancy way of saying vents around the outside of the end cap on the main body that vent blast loads from annular space. Done. Okay. Oh, and by the way, it's a 6mm silencer, so the bore's a little bigger than some typical 5.56 cans. So the Lazarus 6 is literally a low back pressure silencer, like literally, truly, like not make-believe low back pressure, not fake low back pressure like the old Dead Air Wolverine, or I'm sorry, Wolfman. Well, both. The Dead Air Wolverine and the Dead Air Wolfman were supposed to be low back pressure, but they clearly aren't. We've tested both of them. Both of those silencers are high back pressure. One's a high back pressure AK silencer. One's a high back pressure subgun silencer. They were called low back pressure for years. We tested. We found out that was completely and utterly false. With the Lazarus 6, no. It is actually low back pressure. Now, does the Lazarus 6 sacrifice some muzzle suppression for this? Well, in the way that they designed it, yes. Is it terrible? That's a highly subjective question. That's a weird, loaded word. I would say it depends on what you need. I don't think it's terrible. No. And some people might, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but some people might think it's amazing. So let's start to look at that. Let's get into the analysis of the test data in a gross sense first and look at the big picture, literally, spatially, with a silencer hazard map from PewSoft HD at a time of 33 minutes and 54 seconds. Subtopic Delta. 1 second. We're making good time, which is awesome because I've been up since 3 a.m. So we're going to need to finish this on time today. Man, I think these hazard maps are paying dividends. Go ahead, if you're in front of your computer, pull up Hazard Map Brief 8.1.22 in the Silencer Sound Standard, Section 8 of the Silencer Sound Standard. That's Advanced Silencer Research, all public. Yeah, man, these hazard maps are paying dividends. The sweat equity has paid dividends, I think. I don't know. Is that a term? When you open the brief, you'll be greeted by the quintessential forward hazard biased map that characterizes the risk field of a high flow rate silencer on a 5.56 SPR. Yeah, for those of you new to this, hazard maps in the Skunkworks section of the Silencer Sound Standard, which is Section 8, display the suppression rating in a spatial continuum. This allows us to present the hazards to you visually, which can help a lot of people, including me. It helps me. I'm a very visual person. The contour lines correspond to suppression rating, just like is used throughout the entire standard. It is the same number. It is the same metric that you are used to seeing in all of the reports. It is just presented to you spatially, bird's eye view of the weapon system being fired by the operator in a mil standard test configuration, which was what was evaluated in the field. So when you see this Lazarus 6 map in a very well, let me choose my words. Yeah, I can say that. What you see in the map, I would say, is a very tame operator hazard field and a more severe risk forward of the weapon and adjacent to the muzzle. And I think that's fair to say. So, because the question is going to be, is the Lazarus accomplishing its performance goal on the standard untuned Mark 18? And I would say yes, man. Like, just looking at this hazard map, knowing how they marketed the silencer, knowing what people say, I would say yeah. Because, with a high back pressure silencer, if you tune the gun, you're going to be low 30s at the ear probably based on our research. Yes. And if you go back to report 6111. Now, Lazarus here, the Lazarus 6 is hitting almost 28 with no tuning on a Mark 18. Okay. What does that tell you? Well, it might be achieving its performance goal of a meaningfully low back pressure silencer. And the usual caveats apply to this map. And this is, and I don't know if I've said this to you in a while, so let's reiterate. You have to remember, we are using symmetry about the horizontal axis for computational simplicity and conservatism. What that means is, like, clearly, most folks that understand how the AR-15 works, most folks understand that the risk to the right of the shooter is being mapped. Okay? But the risk to the left of the shooter may be artificially high because the ejection port blast jets point to the shooter, to the right, to the shooter's right. So, like, in reality, right? Because almost all ARs eject to the right. So if you're, and they wrap around, but it's not, there is a bias to the right. So if you're a bystander positioned back behind the shooter's left shoulder, you might be safer than what this map shows, because you understand? Because you might be safer than a bystander positioned behind the shooter's right shoulder. So the map's not reflecting that. The map is showing you the worst. You feel me? So that's why, okay, that's what this is intended to do. This is a tool. Tools have to be used responsibly, and that's how we're trying to help you understand this is conservative, meant to be used conservatively. And another caveat to these maps, which is also written in the map title, but some people have missed it, this is in the free field. Okay? If you put a wall next to the shooter, the map doesn't look like this. What would the map look like? It would look like it does in the small study we did in Section 8 of the Standard. It's the first article in the section when we debuted PSoft HD. Please look at that. Another thing to turn your attention to in the map, which you can click and make bigger if you're into that, if you want to zoom in on your phone, wherever you're listening to this. Hopefully you're in a super important meeting at work. That would be hilarious. No, just kidding. Don't get in trouble. Another thing to turn your attention to is the stability index of the silencer. It's in the caption overlay on the map. This is a moderately stable jet. What you don't see here, but you will see in the report, which we're going to get into in a minute, is the consistency of the Lazarus. Now, the map, again, something that's in the title, but you might not see, if you might not have read it, the map is showing you a 5-shot average. It's showing the average suppression rating contours, which is why the muzzle and ear ratings agree with our suppression ratings in our rankings, because what is the suppression rating in muzzle and ear? It's the average of the 5 shots in every single test on the website. So in order to show you the metrics on the map, which would be relatable to you from the reports, we did what? Well, we averaged the contours for 5 shots. And then you get what? The exact same answer you get for the other suppression ratings in the rankings, because the calculations are performed on every waveform, and there's over 8,000 waveforms in this map. There just happen to be, less waveforms in the test because this is a simulation anyway. But it matches the ground truth. So, knowing that, be patient. Knowing that this is an average contour risk, these are average risk contours and not discrete shot contours. These are average risk contours. Knowing that, you also need to understand that we can show you a map from each of the shots separately, discreetly, kind of like we did with the Silencer Co. Sparrow 22 pistol evaluation. Remember, we did an animated GIF of the Silencer Co. Sparrow to display the first round pop, which was really wildly dangerous because the disparity between the first shot from a Sparrow on a short barrel 22 pistol and the average suppression, including the post FRP shots, is so big and so severe with that Silencer Co. Sparrow that silencer, that we felt the hazard map would be a really great way to educate folks about the phenomena. So that's why we did that. But in the Lazarus 6 case, it's so consistent. If we did that, it would almost look the same. That's what you're not seeing this hazard map, because it's the average. That's because this silencer is so incredibly consistent. It would be a waste of effort to do that for you. For this one, you could almost say that the Lazarus 6 is good to the last drop. Like, it's one of those analogies. Like, isn't that like a coffee slogan or something? Like, is that Maxwell House? Go to the last drop. Maxwell House? No. Folgers? Folgers. I think it's, anyway. And you know what? This is notable because of how high the flow rate is. When you have super high flow rate and consistency in the risk field, boy, really, you only see that in really high performance silencers like PIP stuff, CAT stuff. There's more, but those are some of the most consistent. I think CAT and PTR have some of the most consistent high performance silencers. Well, you know what? This Dead Air silencer is right there with them. Now, is it as quiet? Well, no. Maybe they didn't want it to be. I'm just saying, consistent on a consistency level, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Okay, let's dive into now let's, again, graduate scale of complexity. Let's dive in deeper now in subtopic echo to the full report at a time of 42 minutes. 53 seconds. Okay. 1 second, dude. All right. Okay. So pull up, if you would be so kind, pull up report 6225. And normally, for those of you who've listened for a while, normally I tell you can pull up the free report if you're not a Pew Science member, and it's going to be just fine, and I'm not going to leave you behind. This time, that's still true, but you do need to know that the raw data for the direct thread mount test is only present in the member version of the report. So if you don't see it, don't worry. Your computer's not broken. It's just that it's the member report. It was more fully featured for this study than the free version. They're always more fully featured, but this one was considerably more fully featured. Starting from the top, bottom line up front, 27 suppression rating flat, 1 meter left of the end cap of the silencer, 1.6 meters above the ground in the tree-free field. 27.6, 6 inches right of the shooter's right ear, mil standard, for a composite suppression rate of 30.8 on the standard Mark, untuned Mark 18, 10.3 inch barrel. H2 buffer, but stock position 4 of 6, all that good stuff. Standard Pew Science test host. Now, those risk numbers that you saw on the hazard map, and I just repeated to you discreetly at the muzzle and ear, are with the Xeno mount that you get with this silencer. If you remove the Xeno mount and you remove that the Xeno hub coupler, and then you install a direct thread mount and you repeat this experiment, what would happen? Well, the muzzle rating of 27 flat stays exactly the same, which was really an interesting finding. And the shooter's ear suppression rating drops to 24.7 from the 27.6. So a few point drop. So the composite rating drops from 30.8 to 29.4, just a little bit. So why did that happen? What happened? And is it a big deal? Does it matter? All right, we're going to get into it. So this is what I want to do today. We're going to skip for now. We're going to skip the overall summary section. We're going to hit it later. We're going to go directly to the data, blast data. So scroll down to the first test, which is in 6225.2. Okay. And scroll down further, you will get to the blast overpressure traces in Figure 2. Yeah, Figure 2A and Figure 2B. Here you have textbook high flow rate behavior that's visible right away in pressure space. You have fast onset, coincident rarefaction, high amplitude jetting in early time, fast blowdown. In plain English, blast loads are scooting through this silencer real quick like. But pleasant outcome here, which is really neat, is that they are doing so relatively consistently. How many? It's like drink when Jay says consistently for this podcast, right? I've said it 100 times. And it's great to see. I just can't stop talking about how consistent the Lazarus is. And check out blast momentum and impulse space in Figure 3. See how the curves are pretty close together? That's a good thing. That means from shot to shot, you aren't getting that highly erratic combustion propagation you typically get from high flow rate silencers off the shelf from no-name brands. This is good, and not to be disrespectful, but some people are saying high flow rate silencers, and you look at how the combustion propagates, and sure, yeah, it's high flow rate, but it's also like ungodly inconsistent and shooting fireballs. It's like, Surefire RC3 is like an example of like an inconsistent high flow rate silencer. Not to pick on them, but let's, to give you something relatable to think about. This is a good thing about the Lazarus. This should make Lazarus owners extremely happy to understand how their silencer works. Now, if you're a member, which if you're not, that's cool. I think you should be, but if you're not, that's cool. I mean, it'd be awesome if you could be, but it's all good. No, if you're a member, you can look at the Shooter's Ear data traces. You can, and you will see immediately that there is even more evidence of high flow rate behavior, isn't there? Yeah, you see blowdown manifests very quickly. You see ground reflection uncovered. You see front-loaded FRP. You see rate decreases at the muzzle being mirrored at the ear. You see bolt carrier group impact hitting your shoulder. I mean, it couldn't be more consistent and conclusive. The Lazarus 6 is a high flow rate, low back pressure silencer from an observable quantitative performance standpoint. The raw blast data shows you these conclusions without even having to look at the suppression rating. And that is something I really want you to understand and take to heart. Because, we continue to see folks, Pew Science doesn't share their methodology. It's like that. Yeah, we do. You're just mad because the suppression rating metric algorithm is proprietary. Okay, well, keep being mad. And you don't have to look at the suppression rating if you don't want to. But you know what you can look at? The raw blast overpressure data that is repeatable by anyone on the planet, then has been. That is showing what? Super consistent, observable quantitative performance of the Lazarus. Low back pressure, high flow rate. That if you know what you're looking at, is undeniable. I mean, I'm just telling you, them's the breaks, dude. That's the reality. I mean, it's right there. And that's cool. That should give you comfort. I think this should give you comfort, at least confidence, at least more confidence in the conclusions. It should. If you have questions, just let us know. So now you know all that. It was really cool. There's more detail if you want to read the report. That's important. Now, let's look what happens when you change mounts, because this is cool. And you know what the answer is? Almost the same thing, which is the really cool part. Almost the same thing happens when you change mounts. Now, non-members, again, you're not going to see any of this in your free report, so bear with me for a second. I'm going to try to explain this to everybody. This is basically what happens when you change mounts. You end up robbing Peter to pay Paul by trading momentum accumulation rate for amplitude. Okay, so By placing the muzzle blast injection in the silencer closer to the first reflector of the Lazarus specifically, you're changing your initial expansion, and it's forcing the expansion to later time, obviously. And what's the thing you can never get more of, no matter how hard you try? What's the thing you can never get more of, no matter how hard you try, no matter what you are or who you are? Time. The answer is time. The dimension of time. It's fixed in the silencer, and you will run out of time in the Lazarus when you shorten the injection point. Some people say that smaller blast chambers increase back pressure. That is a very dangerous conclusion to make. Okay? In this case, it's true, but it's not because it's always true. It's just, it happens to be true in this case, and it's because of the way the Lazarus works. You slightly increase back pressure here, and that is what's dropping the ear rating, along with the slightly closer muzzle orifice since the length change, but the bigger driver is expansion, really. So it's really expansion. It's an expansion timing thing. That's by and large the reason. Now might be a good time. Actually, it is a really good time. This is interesting. It's a good time to talk about the Mojave. Before we get into the comparisons and the overall thoughts, I want to talk about the Mojave real quick. Remember when we tested the Mojave, and we also tested it with a non-dead air piston, and we told you that the suppression rating dropped by like a category with a non-dead air piston? That was crazy. I remember it because it was so insane. There's a huge paragraph at the top of that report if you want to read about it. That's how crazy I thought it was. Now, pistol silencers are a lot more complicated than rifle silencers on average. And in this case, much more complicated because of the mechanical complication, but also just in general, it's more complicated. But the Triskelion technology seems to be very sensitive to expansion timing when it comes to back pressure. When it comes to muzzle suppression, in high pressure scenarios, it seems to be less sensitive. That was not the case in the Mojave. So, go figure. I think the takeaway, in a practical sense, would be that users of silencers with Triskelion systems should not try to make their silencers ultra short by using weird recessed direct thread mounts. And I think other than that, you do whatever you want. But I think you're leaving performance on the table with a Lazarus or whatever Triskelion technology you're thinking of using if you try to stuff a mount if you try to put your muzzle device super close to the first reflector. I think that I don't think this technology is forgiving in that way in the implementations we have evaluated. And I hate to make a blanket statement extrapolating that to other silencers we have not evaluated, but it is possible that it happens there too. We will see how the research takes us. Make sense? Okay. So that brings us again to the overall thoughts topic. I'm going to give some global comparisons and also speak about the Honda Civic-like nature of the Lazarus 6. Some people like that analogy, some people don't, but it's apt. Subtopic Foxtrot, 53 minutes, 29 seconds. Okay, 1 second, dude. All right. Overall thoughts. Yeah, so now this is where I'm going to take you all over creation. Scroll all the way back to the top of the report. And then go to the summary section, 6225.1. All right, so what we did here is we took all the silencers on the mark. Okay, we took the silencers on the Mark 18, and we took all of them less than 6.125 inches long and shorter, because that way we can include the Lazarus and everything shorter, and put them all on the same chart. So let me tell you the top 5. You got Tisha, Cat CAC-M, Cat WB, Cat KK, and 4 Monarch Recce. What are the bottom 5? Aero Lahar 30, Lazarus 6 with direct thread, OSS HX QD 556K, Energetic Armament RX, Knights MCQ. Okay. You notice I didn't say Lazarus Xeno. It's like, well, yeah, it's there. It's not in the top 5 or bottom 5. When you scroll down, it's actually it's the middle. It's in the middle. And so now I just showed you that So there's a chart, there's a bar chart in this first summary section. You can look at that too, but now what I'm going to do, now scroll all the way down to the very bottom of the report. That chart is repeated. Now there's some bullet lists. Okay. So now you can see, you can look, Lazarus 6 is kind of in the middle, more or less, maybe toward a little bit toward the bottom, but kind of in the middle with the Xeno there. It's a balanced silencer. Now you look at the bulleted list there in the last section, and we give you comparable risk metrics at the muzzle and ear from the gross pedigree, not just the ones in the chart. And so the Lazarus 6 on an untuned Mark 18 in 1 meter left of the end cap mil standard compares at the muzzle to what? Regardless of size, to what? Sort of like a Silencer Co. Velos, sort of like a YHM Turbo T2, sort of like a Aero Precision Lahar 30, sort of like a Knights NT4, sort of like a Trash Panda, sort of like an RC3. It's more consistent than a lot of these silencers, but in a gross average risk sense, using the muzzle suppression rating on this host, very similar. What does that mean? Well, it means it has reasonable performance because what I just listed, these silencers, a lot of them have very reasonable performance. Not super high, not terrible. At the shooter's ear, this is where things get extremely interesting, and the list changes a lot. The Lazarus is similar to the Cat WB, the Velos again, the full-size OSS or Huxworks HXQD 556, the Otter Creek Labs Infinity with vented 556 end cap, a vented Liberty Precision Machine Torch. Now that's a different class of silencers we just talked about. Interesting, right? Yeah, so Lazarus 6 is balanced, performing like a larger NT4 at the muzzle, but a Cat WB at the ear. You probably can't break it. Just like it's going to be hard to break an NT4. Maybe when you put it like that, maybe Lazarus 6 ain't so bad. It's not too big, can't break it. WB performance at the ear. You start to think about these things. You look at it holistically. You consider the length of the system. You consider the direct thread mount really didn't mess up things too bad, since you can tune the gun, right? We didn't tune the gun. You could get it higher. You consider the consistency of the silencer. You consider the weight, the durability. I don't know, man. I think Dead Air brought a pretty good package, all things considered. Compared to the old Sandman series, dude, it blows all of that out of the water as far as I'm concerned. And it's like a fraction of the size. Could you imagine putting a Sandman K next to a Lazarus? Oh my God, dude. Oh my God. Right? You can use this on 6mm if you want. Man, now you can't do 30 cal like the old Sandman series, but it's not what it's for. So yeah, when I say it blows the other stuff out of the water, it blows the old Sandman series out of the water for 5.6 use, I think. So all in all, I do think this could be viewed as the Honda Civic of 5.56 silencers, and it's hard to argue with that. Low maintenance will get you from A to B. You don't have to worry a lot about the fuel you give it. It's just going to run. And I tell you what, this is like, I don't know how far I can push this analogy, but when I buy small engine stuff, like, I don't know, like a small compressor, or like a pressure washer, like I like when they have Honda engines just because they're going to start. And I don't know. Good job, Dead Air. Good job adapting the Triskelion tech to rifle stuff. Had a great showing with the Mojave 9. I think the Lazarus 6 is neat. I mean, doesn't reach like relative Mojave 9 type performance, but still think it's a solid package. This does make us really look forward to testing the Mojave 45. I think that's going to be freaking fun because I love 45. But yeah, hope you folks learned a lot about this silencer. I did. We did. So let me know if you have any questions about it. This is a good project. I really enjoyed it. Good effort. So thanks for funding it, everyone. Now let's move to we're going to move to a completely different part of the performance spectrum, back to ultra high performance, actually, with the new Carson 556. Sunday. At a time of 59 minutes and 44 seconds. I'm exhausted, bro. All right, I'm going to take a break. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Topic 2, Sound Signature Review 6226, the Rampart Range Suppression Carson 556 on the 10.3-inch 556 Mark 18. Man, you almost wanted, and you think about Report 226, you almost wanted to do a SIG study. Missed that opportunity, didn't I? Rampart Range Suppression is back. Carson series is back. Now you get to see their dedicated 556 model, which has been a long time coming. We've been so backed up. The Carson 30 did really well in the SR25. That was like a cool thing to see. And so now, and people were like, what are they doing on 556? It's like, well, how about that? How about the 556 version? What does that do on 556? Because I think that's the cool part. And, it's funny. It's like, is this, because people ask, well, doesn't it have like an infinity core? It's like, well, it does, but with a twist. So it's like, you got to think this is actually somewhat unique to the market. So I want to talk, this is just an introduction. So again, this report's going to be live in the morning, or it's live for you if you're listening to this probably, or it will be in the morning. So, you think, we've published so much infinity research, and actually infinity technology is one of the most characterized technologies by the lab. I love when we comprehensively characterize the technology. It's just, because everybody wins, because the research is public, so you really understand it. And so you think you're done learning about the infinity, but you're not. And here's why. Because Rampart Range Suppression came back, and they're showing what purposeful adaptations to a tech can do. You take away the modularity of the end cap if you don't need it. You put the infinity core to work in a dedicated package for 556. You make it half the weight. And you ask yourself, well, now do you have a more attractive package than a solid end cap infinity is? And I think for some users, it could be possible that is the case. When you saw the Carson 30 on the SR25, we were very careful to tell you Rampart did that thing for a reason. They did it a certain way for a reason. Just like we got through talking about the Lazarus 6 and low back pressure design intent and go-to-war durability, Rampart Range has focused their Carson series on going into the field with your semi-auto rifle, whether that's 7.62 with their Carson 30 or 5.56 with this Carson in the report. You're humping the rifle for a stretch. Maybe you're counting on that lower muzzle weight. You're shooting what you need to shoot. You're doing what you need to do. You're going back to where you need to go. This is a field use silencer. This is not a suppressive fire machine gun silencer that I know some people need, but a lot of people claim they need and don't. Now, because is there a place for both in the market? Well, obviously there's a place for both in the market. But for those of you screaming about the weight of an infinity, and if you don't need modular end caps, well, the Carson 5.56 is doing something pretty interesting here. That's definitely true. So with no mount, it's 9.7 ounces, guys, and girls. Okay, so call it 11 ounces with the direct thread mount, and you're half the weight of an infinity. Half. And the suppression performance is high. And in fact, when the report is live in the morning, you're going to see just how high. You are now hitting top 5 on the Mark 18 overall. So we still have the well-known high early time flow rate of the infinity, but a little different because the blast chamber is different. The end cap's closed off for dedicated 5.56 use because that last expansion chamber is different too. Last expansion chamber is tailored for this. So you have less sacrifices made here because you don't need the modularity because you can't change the end cap. So when you force modularity, you force compromise. When you take away modularity, you adapt to specialization. And this is just like we talked about with the Carson 30. It makes the Carson more specialized, which for performance elevates it a little bit above the Infinity in this role. Just like I don't remember if we published Infinity data on the SR25, but the Carson 30 beats the Infinity on the SR25, I think. So the Carson series will beat the Infinity weapon for weapon. It's just not it's not modular and it's titanium. This is just the facts. Okay, it's interesting what they did. So I think you'll find it interesting. And again, it's cool to have another piece of the Infinity technology puzzle in the pedigree. Again, one of the most studied technologies we have. We know what the Infinity technology does in multiple combustion regimes, in multiple flow configurations, and we, like the collective we, like including you, we might understand this better than most techs on the market, which is a huge place to be because it's not even that old. It's not like we're talking about curved cone mill cut stuff that we took years to really flesh out. No, this is like happened way faster. Everything's accelerating. Everything, not only the technology, but our understanding of it and the pace at which we explain it and fully characterize it is amazing. So if you're interested in seeing a very high performance 5.56 silencer that is lightweight, quiet, extremely tunable for your special purpose rifles or something, like meaning that if you put it on something like you tune the gun, you're going to be in heaven. Great for the field. Perhaps you should check out the report live at 0700 Central Time. I don't know. Big thanks to Rampart Range Suppression for continuing to trust our laboratory to perform this work. They are military people making silencers for use in the way they would use them or where they have used them in their careers. You'll love to see that stuff, dude. I feel like people come home to, do what they want to do and they end up creating things that they wish they had when they were doing stuff, and that's cool to me. Like for the love of the game type stuff. I admire that. That's cool. Just subjective opinion. We'll be back next week with the deep dive. Okay, cool. So please stay safe. Stay dry. It's literally been flooding us lately. It's a good thing we found great test windows, but dude, what a time to do field work, because it is just, I'm not mad about the rain. It's amazing, but also, wow, a lot of rain. So don't wash away. Go shoot and practice with your carry pistol. That's good advice. You never know, dude. All right. I'll talk with you folks again soon. Okay, bye.